It was the year 1980, and Nintendo was in trouble. Having failed to conquer North America so far, they needed a title that, against all odds, would put them on the map. Designed to run on leftover arcade boards, reworked from a failed licensing attempt, and led by a young and untested industrial designer who had high hopes for what was his first and possibly only project. All they needed was a name, one mandated to appeal to an English-speaking audience. Using a Japanese to English dictionary, they made the decision to name the game after its unique antagonist, a stubborn ape. Released in 1981, Donkey Kong was seen as a landmark game for its time. Having turned around the fortunes for its parent company and made a star of its lead designer, Shigeru Miyamoto, it became a phenomenon that remained relevant in both video games and pop culture for nearly 40 years. Without it, video games as we know them wouldn't exist in the form we would recognise them today. Nearly 15 years later, and after a total revitalisation of the home market and the games industry at large, the landscape looked very different from the days of Donkey Kong. The question was, could you update a character with such reverence for a new generation of players? Miyamoto would return to Donkey Kong for a Game Boy port that expanded on elements of the original title, where the arcade's first 4 levels was just the tip of the iceberg. An excellent puzzle platform game, where the protagonist's full transformation into Mario allows a much greater breadth of moves than was available in the original game. And new mechanics and a much improved presentation rounds out what is a pretty solid package. But this was only a small evolution on the original game, and players didn't have to wait long for a total RAREVOLUTION of the franchise.
Video game companies has revitalized the classic just in time to make it on Santa's list. This is a new 3D version of Nintendo's Donkey Kong.
Released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo, Donkey Kong Country was another watershed moment for the stubborn ape. The game wasn't developed internally at Nintendo, but instead was entrusted to the British studio Rare. Having cut its teeth on early PC and NES titles, the company was brought on as a second party by Nintendo due to their proven track record, not to mention their mastery of a technology that would be Donkey Kong Country's biggest selling point. Quite unlike anything else at the time, Donkey Kong Country's presentation was leagues ahead of the competition, with Nintendo losing the market interest against the Sega Mega Drive and the incredible first impression that Sonic the Hedgehog made to consumers. This new title once again put Nintendo one step ahead of the competition, using pre-rendered CGI for characters and backgrounds, not to mention a stellar soundtrack that made the most of the console's unique sound chip. Even Nintendo's own efforts didn't match the fidelity of Rare's title. The first of 3 games in the series, the franchise would be amongst the console's best-selling games, and regarded as some of the finest platforming games of all time. But presentation is only one half of DKC's lasting appeal, and as its graphics have become more rudimentary year on year, you get a better appreciation for a forgotten strength of the title, the quality of its gameplay. I'm GAMESD, and I'm going to explain why Donkey Kong Country works. When given the reins of one of video games' most important characters, and asked to update them for a more sophisticated audience, the question is what changes, and what remains. It's interesting to see what elements of the original Donkey Kong are brought forward into Donkey Kong Country. Gameplay no longer reflects the vertical obstacle course of the arcade game, but instead takes the form of traditional side-scrolling platforming, much in the mould of Super Mario. The similarities only run skin deep. Donkey Kong threw barrels, and so barrels are given a bigger importance in this game. Their weapons, checkpoints, cannons, additional new characters, or whatever interesting forms they can be repackaged as. Donkey Kong Jr. climbed vines to traverse obstacles. and so now the adult junior can grab onto vines and ropes to swing over pits like Tarzan. Donkey Kong is an ape, and as the propagated stereotype goes, apes love bananas. So bananas both provide a central plot point to the title, not to mention act as simple collectibles to lead players and incentivize platforming challenge. Apes live in the rainforest. And so levels move away from the abstract industrial setting of the arcade game and instead reflect more natural settings. Dense jungles, ancient ruins, creepy castles and snowy mountaintops, all of which are rendered in high detail, with additional weather and daytime effects added to set move and tempo per level. With the freedom available to do their own thing, Rare expanded the scope of Donkey Kong's world, introducing new characters, new enemies, a new antagonist, and stories to tie them all together, not to mention redesigning the titular character and bringing back the original arcade Donkey Kong as the old and arrogant Cranky Kong, a character who must have went through very serious atrophy since the third Donkey Kong game. The narrative of the games is simplistic, but this extra layer of context adds to the character of the game and became something of a skill for Rare going forward. Mechanically, where the game differs from the original game, as well as Nintendo's own platform games, is in the execution of its controls, the variety of its levels, and the tempo of its gameplay. Donkey Kong has a simple set of inputs that the player can perform: a jump button, an attack button that's modified by the context of your movement, hold it to run, tap it to perform a roll, slap the ground when holding down on the D-pad, pick up a barrel that you're standing over and throw it when the button is released. And when you pick up Diddy Kong, you can swap the characters around at any time with a push of a button. Donkey and Diddy have different physics to their movement, with a larger Kong feeling heavier and stronger, and the smaller lighter and quicker, each better equipped for certain situations. In the second and third games, new Kongs would be swapped into the cast with new abilities, such as Dixie's hovering hair or Kiddy Kong's rolling hops. Each fits the game they were designed for, and all add flavour to those titles' platforming challenges. Like Nintendo's best platformers, levels will introduce concepts and gimmicks that are iterated on and mixed together in later levels, and these can be anything, from new environments with different physics, new enemies with unique behaviours, complex platforming challenges, animal buddies that recontextualise your control scheme, and many other ideas. Earlier levels focus on only one or two of these ideas at a time, but later and final levels will challenge you on all these gimmicks to test your mastery of the title. Where Rare naturally expanded on the scope of levels was in giving Donkey Kong Country a lot of verticality and depth fitting of its graphics. On many levels, top paths, swinging ropes, hidden canning barrels and secret rooms can be found off the main path, with small objectives like collecting Kong letters, extra lives, tokens and bananas. There's an encouragement to go off the intended path, and the game is stronger for it. Secret levels in particular had minigames or light challenges that would provide fun diversions to the main objective of the game, another calling card Rare would return to in later games. However, the greatest trick that Donkey Kong Country pulls is in the natural rhythm of its levels. Enemies, obstacles, platforms and collectibles all have a bouncy and repetitive movement to them, and finding the beat of a level makes the biggest difference in your rate of success. It's not just about pressing the right buttons, but it's also about pressing them at the right time, and pulling off the more complex strings of challenges in single unbroken movements is perhaps some of the game's most satisfying moments. Where the games falter, and where much of the challenge is derived, is in just how much information the player is given. The camera is very close to the characters, and movement is so quick that players can, and most likely will, bump into enemies and obstacles just off screen. With only a single hit point to bank on, lives are lost thick and fast, and with the intended speed that levels are designed to be played at, it means that you're likely to burn through lives when you first enter a level. The minecart sections in particular are notorious for their fast and dangerous design, with forward momentum taken out of your control, and the entire levels taking place over enormous bottomless pits. Still, all three games present levels that are puzzling and playful, where finding the beat and solving the challenges gives players plenty of incentive to keep playing. Even stripped of their presentation, they remain excellent examples of the genre, very different to Nintendo's own output, and a cut above the rest. It's a shame that Rare didn't quite manage to translate the appeal of these titles to Donkey Kong 64.
Here we go.
With both its mechanics and aesthetics left behind. More in the mode of a large adventure game, it once again only takes the most skin-deep elements. Bananas, barrels, rainforests, the growing cast of Kongs, and the lore of the Donkey Kong world. And then overloads with features that don't at all reflect the original game, including the strangest inclusion of all, giving Donkey Kong a gun. But it's good to see a return to the style of the original games in Retro's revival of the series, aptly titled Donkey Kong Country Returns, with real-time graphics that better the pre-rendered look of the original games, but gameplay that remains faithful to their rhythmic challenges, introduction of new ideas per level, and push for meeting smaller objectives. It's good to see that, more than 20 years on from Donkey Kong Country, the spirit of these games remains for everyone to appreciate. Rare's role in the revitalisation of one of Nintendo's earliest and most important characters is to be commended. Having used the arcade game for a jumping off point for a brand new franchise, and boasted by its cutting edge presentation, the studio created a trilogy of games that other character platformers at the time couldn't compare to, and could even compete with Nintendo's own Super Mario. It's an inspiration for old games that could be new again, and while presentation may age, good design never goes out of fashion. Hello! Thank you for watching and listening. If you want to support the channel, or receive notifications of new videos, remember to press the subscribe button. If you want updates on future videos, or want to know a bit more about me, follow me on Twitter. And, if you'd like to leave any feedback, please leave a comment below. I try and respond to anything you post. And that's all for now. Talk to you soon.